Immortality sounds cool, until you actually have it. No more aging, no more death. You live for 1,000 years. Sounds like a blessing, right? But then your friends perish, your family is gone, the world changes, and you stay the same, forever. That's not a gift, that's a slow silent curse. And no anime shows this better than Frieren, Beyond Journey's End, a story where the hero defeats evil and then has to live with it. But what if I told you that Frieren isn't magic or fantasy anime, it's a horror anime, and the real horror being its biology? Because if real-world science had anything to say about Frieren's long life, her immortality wouldn't just be emotionally devastating, it would be biologically impossible. Let me show you why living thousands of years would literally break your brain, and how Frieren's soft, melancholy journey hides one of the most brutal survival stories in anime. Let's break it down. Let's start with Frieren. What even is she? Frieren isn't human. She's an elf. She looks 20-something. She acts like a quiet, middle-aged librarian, but she's older than most nations. Her party that defeated the Demon King are now edging towards their end as they age. She had lived for centuries at the time of main story. She must have lost countless allies, close friends, but she still talks and behaves like a middle-aged librarian with no emotions. Not because she's heartless, but because she's forgotten how. She has outlived everything, including her own ability to process grief. And yeah, that hits hard. But it also makes scientific sense, because the biological brain of an advanced being like humans or elvish kind isn't built to remember, love, and lose for centuries on end. Here's the thing, we think we want immortality, but we really don't. The average human's body is barely engineered for 100 years, and most of that is patchwork maintenance. The brain, even worse. It's a wet sponge made of meat and lightning, and after decades of use, it wears out. Not just from age, but from experience. Memories accumulate like digital clutter, trauma stacks, emotional bandwidth drains, and Frieren, she's lived 10 times longer than anyone else in her world. She doesn't just carry memories, she carries centuries of grief. Let's get into the science. Your brain doesn't store memories like a hard drive. It prunes, it deletes, it reshapes the past just to keep you functional. That's called neuroplasticity, the ability for your brain to adapt, forget, rewire. But over time, especially in cases of extreme longevity, that ability fades. Neural pathways get entrenched. Emotional responses dull. Old memories become static background noise. You don't grow wiser, you grow numb. Frieren doesn't cry when Himmel dies, or not spontaneously. It takes her a little more time to realize what had happened emotionally. She just stands there, quiet, empty. Then after some time, the floodgates open. It's emotional Alzheimer's, without the memory loss. She remembers everything, she just doesn't react. That's not elf magic, that's a neurochemical breakdown. But maybe you're thinking, okay, yeah, but at least she can make new friends, right? Sure, she does. She meets Fern, she travels with Stark. She slowly builds new bonds, but those bonds can't last, because she already knows how the story ends. Every human she meets is a ticking time bomb. No matter how close they get, she'll lose them, again and again and again. That's the immortality feedback loop. I can't bond with you because you'll die, but I'm lonely because I can't bond with anyone. Science calls this chronic social isolation, and it's not just sad, it's deadly. In real-world studies, isolation is more dangerous than obesity. It spikes your cortisol, destroys your dopamine receptors, and literally shrinks parts of your brain responsible for empathy and emotion. So yeah, Frieren being quiet and cold, that's not just a personality trait, that's long-term isolation trauma in action. Here's where it gets really messed up. Memory, like we said, is supposed to fade, but Frieren's doesn't. She remembers everything. Centuries worth of interactions, lost faces, forgotten names, all filed away in painful high definition. She lives in a loop of perfect grief. Not enough to paralyze her, but just enough to haunt her every time she sees someone smile like Himmel. In the manga, she keeps remembering him, not in a dramatic sobbing way, but in glimpses, a gesture, a joke, a moment. That's how real trauma works. Quiet, repetitive, inescapable. And because her mind never loses those triggers, she's constantly reliving every goodbye she's ever said. That's not immortality, that's emotional recursion. Let's shift gears and look at the actual biology of aging. Inside your body, every time a cell divides, its DNA shortens, specifically the telomeres, which are like protective tips on shoelaces. The shorter they get, the closer the cell is to death. Eventually, boom, cell stops dividing, breaks down, and your organs start to deteriorate. It's called the Hayflick Limit. For humans, that's about 50 to 70 divisions. Frieren, she's long past that, so either her body stops dividing cells entirely, which leads to biological stasis and slow breakdown, or her cells reset their telomeres like cancer cells do, meaning she's essentially in a constant state of potential mutation. And if it's the second, she's not just immortal, she's biologically unnatural, closer to a tumor that walks and talks and casts magic. Let's talk mental flexibility. In humans, aging locks in your personality traits around your 30s to 40s. After that, you start hardening, less risk-taking, less openness. You become set in your ways. Now imagine doing that for 1,000 years. Every decade, the chances of real personal growth shrink. Not because you're lazy, but because your brain literally calcifies those emotional pathways. And that's what makes Frieren's arc so powerful. She doesn't just go on a journey, she changes. Slowly, painfully, quietly. She remembers how to care. She learns how to love again. She starts crying over graves she used to walk past. That's what makes her different from every elf stereotype. Because most immortal beings in fiction go cold, detached, godlike. But Frieren, she stays human, or at least tries to. That's harder than any magic she casts. Let's be honest, most stories treat immortality like a superpower. Live forever, watch empires rise and fall, become a god among mortals. But Frieren doesn't flex. She wanders, she visits old places, looks at ruins where homes used to be, talks to ghosts, holds onto letters and memories like artifacts in a museum of loss. Her magic doesn't save her from the core truth. Living forever doesn't give you more life, it gives you more death. If you like this, watch out other anime videos infused with science. And other than that, take care and stay sharp.